Welcome to r/JustNoHOA, where people tell stories about their crazy homeowner associations. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first story goes like this. When I was younger, my dad started a limousine service. Before the company got big enough for its own office space and multiple limos, he would bring his own limo to our home. Detached condos with a HOA to clean and stock and sometimes leave it overnight when it was needed for a job. It lived in a storage lot the rest of the time. The presence of a limousine in the neighborhood was apparently distracting to the people on the board, so they passed a rule that you could not have a vehicle longer than X feet parked in front of your house overnight. Then, the main old guy on the HOA board got a huge RV that he would leave in front of his house for days at a time, so they got rid of the vehicle size rule and replaced it with a rule forbidding vehicles that advertised a business. The limo had a decal on the driver's side door with the name of my dad's limo company and the phone number. Then someone else on the board started a landscaping company and had a pickup truck with the name of the landscaping company on the side, so they changed the rule to only allow such vehicles to be in your driveway, not parked on the street, since the pickup could fit in the owner's driveway but the limo could not fit in ours. Basically, rather than just make a no limos rule, they kept making rules that disallowed limos and then kept changing it when it would accidentally apply to anything but a limo. I'm really wondering about the real reason behind these petty rules. Maybe there's some sort of jealousy involved, but anyway, I'm curious if any of my ripe stars own an RV. It has always been a dream of mine to do a road trip through the United States in an RV, so let me know in the comments what you got. Next one, I live in an HOA community. My experience thus far: first, I went to a meeting where a guy wanted a 4-foot fence instead of the standard 3 because his dog kept getting out. After arguing for a bit, he was not so politely told to appeal to the Architectural Review Committee. At the end of the meeting, they asked for volunteers to sit on said ARC. I volunteered, approved his request, and then quit. He has a 4-foot fence. Second, I got a notice that my fence was not within regulations because the peak of the arch was 4 inches too high. I went to a meeting to appeal and with a draft of my new plans. My appeal was shot down, so I revealed my new plans, which included no fence and a 40-foot ham radio tower. HAM radio towers cannot be regulated by HOA. My fence is apparently okay. Third, I got a knock on the door one day from someone soliciting home repairs for my damaged garage door frame. I politely told them no thanks and a few days later got a letter from the HOA. Out of curiosity, I looked up the business and sure enough, one of the board members owned the home repair business. I sent the HOA board a letter of my finding with a copy to my attorney general. Apparently, my garage door frame is also okay. Edit, I also have one I have not got to use yet. When I first moved in, I received a letter from the HOA that all improvements to the property were approved at the time of me moving in. If they ever decide to challenge anything I've done, I will simply say that it was there when I moved in and watch them try to prove that it was not. The sheer pettiness of these HOA communities would just make me crazy. Especially because I could not care less about how my driveway or my garden looks, and I would care even less what my neighbor thinks about that. And the next one, a few years back I lived in some condos as a renter that had a HOA. Each condo had a street-facing door and garage as well as a door on the inside facing the pool. I am a typical working middle-class guy with a typical family, a wife, some kids and the occasional pet. One of our neighbors was 3 specific minority families that got together and decided to buy this one unit on the end. They all lived there most of the time and often had questionable visitors come by. The president of the HOA for the condos was also the majority owner and he lived hours away but would come for vacation at his condo during the summer to be by the beach. One night my wife and I had just put the kids to bed and we hear this obnoxiously loud knock on the front door. We have a doorbell, is all I could think, so I walked up to the door and looked through the peephole and recognized the guy, but could tell something was up. My wife freaked and called the cops like right away. I opened the door and the guy started screaming, "You're dealing! I want some! I will pay right now! Hook me up!" He was accusing me of dealing drugs from my house. I explained to him that the family next to us regularly had questionable late-night visitors and he should go over there if he was going to make a scene. But no, he insisted he had seen people that could only be drug dealers come in and out of my unit for the past week. My wife heard the conversation and relayed it the cops, who at this point were en route. Frustrated at being yelled at by a drunken idiot this late at night, I told him if he thought he found a drug ring, he should call the cops and not go knocking on doors, putting himself in danger. He took it as a threat and in return started threatening me. I had enough, so I went inside. About the second I got the deadbolt locked, he starts banging again, waking up my sleeping 3- and 1-year-olds. I stepped into my room, grabbed my pump shotgun, told the kids to go to the back of the house and opened the door again with my gun to his face. My wife told me John, a family friend who was also the on-duty night cop, was coming to the house. I told her to advise him of the situation. The drunk HOA president then took my show of arms as confirmation that I was indeed the drug lord he was after and starts to walk off. I let him because I'm not about to walk outside of my house with a loaded gun drawn. He calls the cops and before he gets off the phone, John, our family friend, arrives with lights on and everything. I put my gun down and stepped outside to talk the situation through. The HOA president thought that the cops were there in response to his call because he did not know about my wife calling. He starts yelling at the cop, "This is the drug lord, I caught him red-handed." John cleverly asked him to cross the street for questioning, then placed handcuffs on him for being in public domain while intoxicated. He blew a .12 BAL, which I suppose is blood alcohol content, but correct me if I'm wrong, and got arrested that night. The cops told me that if he was ever a problem again, just to call. The next week we got a letter from his wife, the HOA VP, informing us that we had to move out. I took that to the owner of the unit we were leasing and we threatened to take it to court. I attended the next HOA meeting with the owner with police report in hand and the board unanimously voted to remove the president and VP completely from the HOA and they comped our fees for the next 2 years. It seems like those HOA bullies are strong until you take matters really in your own hands and maybe even go to court. And by the way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you very much, your support is really appreciated. And the next story, we had this one strange guy in our neighborhood who liked to build strange things in his house. Well, I guess one day he decided to take his hobby outside and build a treehouse in his backyard. Our HOA president was a city councilman at the time and he was not happy in the slightest. This literally turned into a 2-year dispute where the HOA would keep asking him to add safety measures to the structure in hopes that he would eventually give up and dismantle the treehouse. Eventually, the HOA told him that he would have to have the plan signed and stamped by a qualified engineer saying that the structure was safe. At the next meeting, he handed in the blueprints signed and stamped by no other than himself. That was a great meeting. It turns out that he had a PhD in civil engineering and there was only one guy in the room that did not find it funny. I love how the story starts out. We had this one strange guy in the neighborhood and then in the end it turned out that he has a PhD in civil engineering. Once again shows you better not judge people from the outside. And the next one, my mom is an incredible landscape architect who has written 2 books on the subject. We live in a good-sized house in the suburbs. When my parents first moved in, our entire front and backyard was just grass. My mom did not like this, so she spent years outside gardening and developed our yard into something really beautiful and unique. Basically, keep in mind I know nothing about landscape architecture. We have 2 small patches of grass on either side of our driveway, which is surrounded by a multitude of well-maintained bushes and flowers. After my mother had spent years on this project, the HOA sends us a letter about how there is a designated amount of grass that every yard must have. Our yard looked amazing and my mom was clearly distraught, so she ignored the letter. They sent more and more until an HOA representative came out. The person was being a total jerk to my mother and threatening legal action, so my mother heard them out, then calmly responded with, "Thank you for making the trip out here, mister," something I forget, "but before you take legal action, I should have you know, my father-in-law is a lawyer who has been certified to testify before the Supreme Court. This is true. And, between you and me, he does not make a habit of losing cases, especially those as mundane as this." The man was slightly taken aback and stuttered something before my mom added, "I'm a determined woman, and as you can see from my garden, when I start something, I make sure I finish it my way. If you don't stop pestering us, I will see to it that your whole organization is taken down. Get the F off my property and have a good day." Never heard from the HOA again. My daughter has severe asthma. We bought our condo because it was affordable, clean, and move-in ready. We were trying to move before our son was born for fear a moldy house made our daughter sick and would do the same to our son. Our first summer in the condo, the president's wife went psycho and cut down the tire swing that majority of the owners agreed to let us have for my daughter because she thought it was ugly. Or maybe because we told her teenage son to get off the toddler-sized tire swing. After threatening legal action, the association agreed to let us have the swing so long as it is removable. We hang a birdhouse there when the tire is down and only put it up when the little kids are out to play. The whole ordeal took over a month to settle. I dread this summer when we petition for a swing set. And the next one, got a trampoline for the kids, they loved it. HOA asked me to get insurance coverage for it, so I got insurance coverage for it and made a copy of the statement for them as proof. HOA then faxed every incident report involving trampolines in the neighborhood to my insurance company, referencing my policy number, and sent a letter of disapproval. Now my kids don't have a trampoline and neither do any kids in this entire neighborhood now. The saddest part is, on Google Earth it still shows the trampoline and my youngest daughter was sad when she looked up our address. In the non-slummy parts of South Florida, the HOAs control everything. I cannot even put up a fence either because I am on a corner. The only benefit to having an HOA in my neighborhood is the free Comcast cable and the fact that they petitioned Comcast to get us 50 Mbit internet. I am moving soon to be closer to family. I can get a 10-acre plot up north with a house twice this size for the same price. I cannot believe I ever thought this was a good idea. Okay guys, nobody mentioned to me that HOAs can petition internet providers to get better internet. Sorry guys, if that is the case, I might consider moving into a neighborhood with an HOA. Actually, I'm not even kidding, if I could live somewhere that has Google Fiber internet, I would probably even endure an HOA. I lived in a middle-class development of about 900 houses in Northern California. Our neighborhood / part of the development was unusual because people spent a lot of time outside, kids playing, people gardening, chatting, etc. Which is why we moved in there. I got a basketball hoop for my 12-year-old daughter. She and lots of neighbor kids would use it. They all knew to call car and get out of the way immediately if a car was coming. Neighborhood street, into the cul-de-sac, no through traffic. Sometimes us grown-ups would play too. A great situation. Wait, let me guess, everybody is satisfied, both adults and kids. Obviously, the HOA has to intervene. And yes, apparently, some retiree had a habit of walking around the development and called the HOA on us because basketball hoops were not allowed. I knew of several other ones, but I did not want to mention them because I did not want to give them trouble too. And the HOA said I could only have a hoop if it was put away in the side yard when not in use. The 200-pound hoop was a bit beyond my daughter's ability to take out and put back. Instead, I surveyed the 65 houses in our neighborhood, putting a slip of paper in everyone's mailbox. Yes, I should be able to keep the hoop, or no, I should not. I kept their responses anonymous because I did not want anyone to feel pressured. I got 22 yes responses, so I went to the HOA meeting armed with my data. One of the board members said, "So 2/3 of your neighborhood is against it." I explained, my anger rising, that no, I had only received responses from 1/3 and no one could know what the other 2/3 thought. Then they said I would need to change the CC&Rs, basically the association bylaws, which could only be done by a 2/3 active vote of the entire association. Active meaning I would need to get 600 yeses, not just 2/3 of the people who voted. I told them you could not get 600 people to bother voting for oxygen. And I put away my basketball hoop. And as it happened, my daughter stopped playing sports. What the hell? That's what I don't like about these Ask Reddit stories. Sometimes they have a really unsatisfying ending. So basically in this case, the HOA bullies won. Next one, we moved in when I was young, 3rd grade. The HOA was run like crap, many things were falling apart, namely the boardwalk and dock behind half the townhomes, which could have resulted in a lawsuit if someone hurt themselves. Parents were receiving tickets for everything that would happen, board members would commit acts against the rules but were untouchable. So my parents led a coup. They hired a lawyer that would sit in on meetings, made a few neighborhood friends, and my mom's best friend moved into the neighborhood. Coup was successful, so the HOA straightened up and fixed most everything. Once we moved out, it went back to shit. Next one, my old condo HOA was a pain in the ass. A bunch of crusty old farts and stupid people. When I first moved in, the monthly fee was right around $250. During my first year of living there, they did a special assessment fee to fill the account back up. Everyone now owed another $1,500. I spoke with the board and told them that I just moved in and should not owe the money. I even went through the bylaws, which clearly stated that in this circumstance, the homeowner would be exempt from special assessments within their first 6 months. I had been there around 5 months and 2 weeks, so what did they do? Apparently there were a handful of people like myself who had moved in around the same time. What did they do? They voted to change that by law to 90 days. Bam! When can we expect your check, sir? Another incident was when I wanted to install a security screen door. A normal security door is like $80 at Home Depot. I noticed that the other homes with security doors seemed to all look the same. I asked the HOA where I get one of those doors. Turns out it was a special order door from Dixieline and ran me over $400 for the door plus shipping. Then they would not let me install it myself. I had to call their authorized installer, who charged me $150 to put it up. Jesus Christ, almost $600 for a stupid security door that should have cost me under $100. And the next story, grandmother's house was in a gated community across the state from me. Grandmother passes away, spent a few days at her home packing and clearing in prep of selling her home. Must be at work on Monday. Leave first thing Sunday morning to Goodwill with a bunch of donations inside rented U-Haul so that when I return I can load all the furniture and items we will keep in the truck to make long drive back home. Upon return from Goodwill, lady at gate will not let moving truck in the community because they are not allowed on Sunday. Are you effing kidding me? Refuses to budge, had to move all the things from the house using a small vehicle to the U-Haul parked on the side of the road outside of the community. F HOAs, F gated communities, F stupid small-minded people. You will never see me pay any effing buddy monthly for the pleasure of residing in their midst. And the last story is gonna be about a crazy lawsuit involving a HOA. 4 years ago, George Willow was ready for a change. His kids were grown, his father had died and he wanted to be closer to his mother. So he shut down his architectural consulting business in the Quad Cities in Iowa and bought a 3-bedroom home in the Avignon Villa subdivision in Olathe. And excuse me if I butchered that name. But instead of settling into paradise, he says, he landed in purgatory. The HOA apparently started off with attitude from the day Willow moved into the community back in 2012. They cited the homeowner for parking his car in the driveway. Rules say all vehicles must be parked in a garage overnight. They did not like his lawn statue of St. Francis either and ordered the homeowner to remove it from his front yard. Then the developer-controlled HOA paid its attorney to send a written warning to Willow over the placement of his satellite dish. The HOA board backed off when the Federal Communications Commission informed the board that federal law protects a resident's right to place a satellite dish where it is needed to ensure a strong signal. But the big dispute began when Willow, a retired architectural consultant, installed a low decorative stone retaining wall to support planting beds around the foundation of his home. Previous reports noted that before installation began, the HOA Architectural Committee approved the homeowner's landscape plan. However, Avinion's attorney says the plans approved did not specifically include the small retaining walls used to raise the plant beds. We are not talking about a fortress or a moat. The kicker is that many of Willow's neighbors think his landscape is attractive. The small change in elevation does not encroach on any easements and it does not alter storm drainage on neighboring properties. Plus, evidence produced in court by Willow's attorney shows that several other homes have similar retaining walls, but the HOA does not seem to care about those. So it is absolutely crazy that a dispute over an attractive landscape feature has spun out of control, creating a 7-year-long dispute and a lawsuit costing $1 million. Next we will read an update to the story. An Olathe homeowner can keep his landscaping project that his HOA deemed over the top. A judge ruled Wednesday in a years-long battle that has racked up hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Johnson County District Judge Rhonda K. Mason said the Avinion HOA treated homeowner George Willow unfairly when it denied his application for the project.
"I don't think there's any secret that this was a contentious relationship,"
Mason said of the HOA and Willow.
"The court finds that the relationship between the parties played a role in this application being denied."
Mason also ruled, however, that Willow violated his HOA rules by failing to fill out the proper application before installing the landscaping project, which features a long, low accent wall running the length of his house. So, the judge ordered Willow to pay a $25,000 fine to the HOA. Mason denied both sides' requests that attorney fees be paid by the opposing party. Instead, she ordered Willow and Avinion to pay their own legal fees. That means Avinion residents will be responsible for the HOA's bill. Willow told the Star that his legal bills surpass $300,000. Avinion board president Michael Harrington would not say what the lawsuit had cost the association. Budget documents posted on Avinion's online site indicate the HOA has spent more than $330,000 in legal fees since 2013. No other lawsuits are mentioned. So basically the fascinating thing here is that the Avinion residents will be responsible for the mess that the HOA created. I would say you should really think twice about becoming an HOA member if you don't have to. And unfortunately guys, this is all the content I got for you today, and I'm not exactly sure when I'm gonna upload this, but either way, I wish you a happy new year, and I hope all your dreams and wishes come true for 2020. A friend of mine called Billy has his 40th birthday on January 1st, 2020, so I would just like to say happy birthday Billy, stay awesome, and the same of course applies to all of my ripe stars. Thank you so much for supporting me since the start of the year. I still see quite a few people that have followed me from the beginning and still continue watching today. I would just like to assure you that I have no intention to stop with this anytime soon, and I hope we will grow even more and get more ripe stars in our community in the next year. So all in all, thank you for your support in 2019. Let's make 2020 an even better year. But as usual, I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.